One of the things that we want to cover this morning is we want to talk about, well, you're gonna meet our team here in Indy. This is our largest operation. We have right now over 1,000 houses under management here in Indianapolis. I came here from Southern California. I started selling my Southern California properties back in 2004. Because the first, what kind of tipped me off, any SoCal people? NorCal people? Okay. So anybody know where Hemet is?
Yeah.
Hemet, Kentucky. What's that?
We live in San Francisco.
That's right, you live in San Jacinto. So this duplex I bought was on Florida in Hemet. And was the first property that I bought when I was teaching high school. I bought this for $100,000 in '99. And the front was rented for $750. And then there's like a little breezeway, and then the back was rented for $750. So a $100,000 duplex bringing in $1,500 a month. Any math whizzes in with us this weekend? What's my return going to be on a property like that? Anybody ever hear of the 1% rule? If it's a figure that I use a lot, you guys all got the Wi-Fi code? NCAA capital, yes. One of the first ratios that I learned to evaluate properties was the 1% rule. You look at the monthly rent as a relationship to your purchase price plus your initial rehab. Okay? So using this duplex as an example, I was getting $750 plus $750, $1,500 a month. Bought it for $100 and only spent about $8 on it. So, what percentage is 1,500 of about 100 grand? It's about
50 times 12 or
1.5%. 1 month's rent is about 1.5% of what I spent on the property. Everybody with me?
Yep.
Now, what I've learned is that if anything above better than 1%, I can usually get a 9% or better return on my investment. It's a rough gauge, but it's a good starting point when you're looking at rental properties or investment properties or thinking about keeping a property. Anything less than 1%, I start dropping. I'm 7, 6, 5, 3%. You see that? So you look at this property that is getting $1,500 a month. Let's just kind of do the quick math. Who's got a calculator? 1,500 times 12 is how much? 18,000 a year?
Yeah.
And my taxes on that property were $1,000 bucks.
That's it.
Welcome to California. 1% of the assessed purchase price. In fact, Warren Buffett always talks about how the house in California, if you buy a property, your taxes never go up. They are 1% of what you buy it for. So Warren Buffett bought some houses down in like Laguna Beach and Orange County, Irvine for $50,000, $40,000 back in the 60s. His taxes are still $400, $600 a year. It never goes up in California.
Wow.
It's it's crazy. Indiana just did that same thing. It's written into the state constitution. So for investors in Indiana, your taxes are capped at 2% of the assessed value, which is great. So you got $1,000 a year in taxes, $1,800 property management. Insurance was about $700 bucks. So $3,500 in expenses. So you're at $14,500 in.
Oh, you're.
Am I right? If I subtract that out,
Yeah.
just off the top of my head. So at the end of the year, I collect $1,500 a month on this duplex. After paying my taxes, management, and insurance, I'm looking at about $14,000 a year. Everybody with me? Now, $14,000 based on a $100,000 investment. About how much was my return on that? 13, 14%. Good deal?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. In 1999 it was. Great, it's a good deal today. Which is why I bought it. In fact, I moved into this unit. I was teaching high school in Menifee. And my mortgage for the whole property was at 7%. So I just had mortgage, taxes, and insurance. I think the whole thing put me like right around $800 a month. So I was renting out the back and living for free in the duplex. Now my wife hated it because we had a concrete front yard. The previous landlord got sick of the tenants not cutting the weeds, so she just poured concrete in the whole yard. And that was originally a chain link fence that I swapped out for a picket wood fence, trying to dress it up a little. Lipstick on a pig. But that's what kick-started my investing, was that property. In 2004, this duplex hit the market again. And I noticed that it was listed to be sold for the third time, because it had sold I sold it in 2000, it sold again in 2002, and then it was on the market again for $350,000.
Wow.
So over three times what I paid for it. Someone was trying to sell it as an investment property. Do you think the rent had tripled on that duplex? No. A lot of people don't realize that rents are not tied to property values. Rents are tied to jobs. Rents are tied to the population growth and industry. They're not tied to, property values go up and down independent usually of rents. So that property, someone was offering that at $350,000, it was still bringing in $1,500 a month. Well, based on the 1% rule, $1,500 is what percent of $350,000? If $1,500 is 1% of 150, so it's like 0.4% rule. If you're less than 1%, your return does what? Goes down. So whoever was contemplating buying a $350,000 duplex in California to get $1,500 a month was contemplating a return on their money of 3 or 4%.
Nice.
Now, when I saw that property hit the market, I had done another 60 deals. Bought and sold apartment complexes, a trailer park. I had flipped a ton of houses. And I had made, when I went through and added up all the properties that I currently own, all the equity that I had in those properties, it was about $1.4 million, $1.5 million. And I had deals selling. And seeing that duplex jump to $350,000 made me go, all right, well, where is the market going to go? Because if I bought it for $100,000, and a couple years later someone else bought it for $2 and change, and now someone buys it for, somebody did buy it for $350,000. This is not sustainable because people are buying properties and the return is just dropping. That was the indicator to me. Some people are like, wow, it was so smart that you left California and came to Indiana. I'm like, no, just seeing that property come up for the third time scared me. Because it didn't make sense to me. And so I started selling everything in 2004. And decided to come to Indiana. Now, why Indy? Well, my dad was from Indiana. And ironically, my dad was a hard money lender at the time. Originally he was a casino executive, so we grew up in Las Vegas. I went from kindergarten through 7th grade. Any Vegas people? No Vegas. So I went kindergarten through 7th grade in Vegas. My dad was an executive at the Golden Nugget. My uncle, his brother-in-law was the president. He was one of the vice presidents. And he got offered a chance to run his own casino in Atlantic City. So in 7th grade, we moved to New Jersey. I went to junior high and high school out there. And right around 2002, would have been right about the time I started buying and selling properties, he and his friends pulled some money together and started doing hard money lending. They had about $30 million. And when I did this property and got a check for $50,000, I went to my dad and I was like, hey Dad, check it out. I need a hard money loan. And he's like, hey Aaron, forget it, you're a bad investment. And I said, what do you mean? I said, I just made $50,000. He's like, yeah, but you bought it thinking you were just gonna live for free. And then you noticed the market went up and you sold it and got lucky, good for you. That's not investing, that's random, fell into a deal speculating. I'm like, well, I bought the Carlton Sheets No Money Down tapes. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I've been getting some education, and he's like, yeah, but you haven't made enough money to where I would feel comfortable working with you. And I thought that was really interesting. So I bought this first deal with student loan money. And then after this, I did a 7-plex in San Jacinto, right there by the city offices, right off of Main. And then I did, houses, single family. Now, what was interesting was the first 3 years that I was flipping properties, I was teaching in high school, and I taught every semester. Every year I taught 4 Spanish 1s and 1 U.S. history, and every day at lunch, all the coaches would eat lunch together in the athletic director's office. And one of the favorite topics of conversation was Aaron's deals. Because, any teachers in the audience? Okay. Teachers are some of the worst chicken littles there is. Okay, they always, you think about it, the mentality is they have a very stable job, very low chance, once you get tenure, very low chance that you're going to get fired. You're working for your pension, you're putting your 180 days a year in. You really don't work a lot. Once you get your lesson plans and stuff down. Now, let me rephrase that. High school teachers really don't work a lot. Elementary school teachers work a lot. I think they should get paid triple what high school teachers make. Because there was, the head of the math department of the high school where I taught just had like 150 transparencies, and he would put it up each day and say, copy that down, start working through the book, I'll be at my desk if you have questions. That's how he taught. That was the head of the math department. They all had one form or another of you remember, you had teachers like that, right? Then there's maybe 1 or 2 teachers in the school that actually taught. So what's interesting is with high school teachers, you get a lot of chicken littles. And what I mean by that is, when I did this first deal, it was, oh yeah, but I remember in the early 90s, real estate took a nosedive in Riverside. Well, it lost a lot of money. That's risky, stay away from that, Aaron. And I'm like, well, I just made 50 grand and my salary this year is 40. So I think I'm kind of ahead of the game. The next flip I did was the 7-plex, and on the 7-plex I made $90,000 flipping it. And again, that was a good deal, and good thing there's buyers out there. And what was funny was they watched me flip properties for 3 years, and while I was still at the high school, I easily made $800,000. And every deal I'd come in, and every deal they'd find some reason, you never know the market's going to turn, Aaron. Okay, in 2000, in 2001, in 2000. We were in, a lot of people didn't realize, but Riverside County between 1999 and 2004 was the fastest appreciating real estate market in the country. Riverside, San Bernardino County, it was on every top list of appreciation. And none of the chicken littles could see it, right? And they just kept saying, well, no, it's going to get risky, and I kept getting further and further ahead. And then they finally just wrote it off to, I was some kind of a savant that had figured out analytics and numbers, and that's how they compartmentalized it. Because they couldn't confront the fact that if they would have educated themselves, and they would have taken action and gotten in the game and bought some deals, that they would have benefited from it the same way. Isn't that interesting? It fascinated me, the mindset. They were watching me do it. So by the time I saw this come back up on the market in 2004, it really scared me, because what's interesting is when you're broke and you use your student loan money for the first deal, you don't care, because you figure, what's the worst that can happen? I get a ding on my credit. But when you make over $1 million, what does your fear turn to? Losing that money. You care. Asset protection becomes real important. Not getting sued becomes real important. What kind of insurance policies you have becomes real important. Because you don't want to lose it. You don't want one, sideways tenant to take it all away from you. And so it was funny because I called my dad and I said, Dad, what's going on? He's like, yeah, we're not doing any deals in California. I said, well, what should I do? He said, go to Indy, go to Indiana. I'm like, yeah, that's grandma and grandpa, that's the state fair, that's fishing in the summers. I've never lived in Indy. You lived in Indy. You left when you were 21. You've never gone back. And he said, I'm telling you, call one of your uncles up. He's like, my whole family's still there. Grandma and grandpa are there. All of your uncles. You have a huge hillbilly extended family in Indiana. Proud heritage of hillbillies. Proud heritage of a straight family tree. So I did. I called Uncle Bob, and Uncle Bob is contracted, and Uncle Bob paints houses. And Uncle Bob's got a crew guys, and they're doing construction out here. So I called Uncle Bob, and I flew out here, and he said, you know, one of the guys on my crew, he just inherited a house from his mom, and he didn't want to live in it. It needs a lot of work, and I think he'd sell it to you for $25,000. I'm like, where is it? And he's like, it's by Grandma's house, just a few blocks from Grandma's house on 16th Street. And 16th Street, 2 streets down from 18th. So I said, okay, well, yeah, I'm coming out, because I couldn't get my mind around a $25,000 house. Because I hadn't bought anything in California less than 100, and that was the first property. I was in the 200s, 300s by 2004. So I fly out here, and I thought, you know what, maybe this guy's gonna want cash. So I literally brought $25,000 in cash. Because I thought, man, maybe this is a unique deal. It's gonna be so great that, you know. Growing up in the casino business, there was always cash. So I show up with 25 grand, meet up with Uncle Bob, and we go check out this house, and it needs like 15 grand in work. And I knew it wasn't a horrible neighborhood because Grandma and Grandpa lived nearby, and so I said, wow, what would this rent for? And he's like, oh, $700, $695, something like that. I'm like, okay, so then I start thinking 1% rule, okay? Because I wasn't getting 1% rule anymore in 2004. I'm thinking $700 for a $40,000 investment, that's like 1.5%. I'm back to 1.5 again. And I said, how many of these kind of deals can I get? He's like, oh, they're everywhere. So then I started really digging into the economics of Indy. And I noticed that Indianapolis had grown 2/3 in size since the 60s. For the last 20 years, Indianapolis has been about 1.5% growth rate per year. So I thought, well, okay, 1.5% of 1.8 million, 25,000 people. That's 2,000 people a month that are moving to Indianapolis. Net growth, right now. Think about that. 2,000. Think about population growth and all of the data that includes. Because people aren't going to move to a city if there's no jobs. People aren't going to move to a city if there's not affordable housing. Think how hard it is for you to pick up and move, unless you grew up in the military. Okay? Moving's a big deal. Changing jobs and moving to a different city is a big deal. So when you have 2,000 people a month net moving to this community, a lot of the research that you have to do is kind of swept into that. Do you see that? Now, this is Buster and Carmen. They both work for us. Now, how many guys do you have working for you right now?
It varies, but I'd say right now probably about 65.
So we have 4 different crews because we're buying 10 houses a week. So we're doing 100 to 150,000 a week in construction, and our guys have to be able to do. Each crew has to be able to go at a pace of $10,000 a week in work. So if we give you a $30,000 rehab on a house, you got to get that done in about 3.5 weeks. That's the pace we require when we give you jobs. So you guys are doing about how many houses right now?
Right now, I think we're doing 26.
So at any given time right now, he's had somewhere in the 20s that his guys are knocking out, just based on different size. And then we have we have an all Hispanic crew, and they have how many jobs right now?
I think 27.
Okay, and then we have some smaller crews that do 1, 3, 5 jobs. And so, it's funny because Buster and his guys started doing some of the first houses that we did here. Back in, the first properties we bought, that first house that was Uncle Bob's crew guy's house that was by Grandma's was like in Somerville 4.
Yeah.
And then I started Alpine when I came out here with Dad and his money in January of 2005. Was when I started Alpine Property Management, which is our management company. And feel free to check us out, guys. Go get on the Better Business Bureau, call the Attorney General. We are squeaky clean. We've never been sued by an investor. We've been doing business as Alpine Property Management since 2005. We've ran thousands of properties through that management company. And one of the big reasons why we like to do this training, because this is part training, but it's really part due diligence. What you're really doing is vetting this operation and vetting us and vetting organization, because what you'll meet and how you'll see laid out here this weekend is exactly how we've put together Dallas. So there's an Alpine Property Management Dallas, there's an Alpine Property Management Kansas City, and starting next month there will be an Alpine Property Management Orlando. Because the vision that we have for this company now is that you can buy property from us in any of our markets and get the exact same experience. The exact same management, the exact same philosophy. We've been very careful as we've gone into those other markets to make sure that it works the same. Does that make sense? Carmen, tell me what you do.
Hi, I'm the maintenance coordinator for Alpine Property Management, obviously. And basically what I do is I run a crew of guys, and for any maintenance that comes on at Alpine, once maintenance comes in, then I send a contractor out, I contact you, I make sure that you know everything that's going on, I relay the pricing, you know, what we have to do, send pictures, things of that nature. And then I get my contractors out there and they handle the work, then I send after pictures. I also handle any invoicing or any insurance work that needs to be done to the property as well. If it's like, you know, we have hail damage from a roof, or, you know, there's mandatory recommendations.
So Carmen and there's one other girl, Tiffany, who went, oh, there's Tiffany. Tiffany, why don't you come up? So we have 2 people that do all of our maintenance calls. So one of the biggest, you know, complaints that people have when they're, you know, buying property is that they don't want to do the management. So Carmen and Tiff take all the calls for you. They send somebody out to figure out the price. They get your permission to do the work, and then they send someone out to do it. You have all of the control, but none of the headache. Make sense? And maintenance is, you know, it's an ongoing thing. So when you buy a property, the only thing you're really responsible for is you've got to pay the taxes, you pay the insurance, and you need to be available by email or phone so we can get your permission on what to do to the house. But you don't have to do any of the legwork. Does that make sense? We do all of that for you. All right, thanks, guys. So, Brant is my brother. If you can't tell, I can fool his kids on the phone. It's the same as he can fool mine. And Brant was, well, he was an economics major in college. And then he started doing commercial construction after school. And so he was building schools and strip malls and doing these big $1 million commercial projects. And he was a project manager. He's living in Arizona. And about 3 years after we have been here, we got so busy and so big. I said, you know, we're doing all these houses, but we're still treating them like single projects. We need to treat these like $1 million projects because that's how much rehab we're doing every month. So I called Brant and I talked him into coming out here to help us figure out better systems for our construction. And take his commercial background and apply it to the way that we do construction here in Indy and in Dallas and in Kansas City. And so he moved his 4 kids, and we completely revamped the way we were doing the construction, the way we were working with the contractors, the way we paid them, the way we did our budgeting. And so Brant works with investors full-time now. And talk about a little bit about, you know, how the evolution has been for you.
It has been kind of interesting just because going from a construction background, which is really kind of an individual type of job, and all you're doing is pounding nails or, you know, looking at a spreadsheet of where your job is at, going to a very personal, I love the part of meeting people and getting to interact with them and finding out what their story is and you know, just see what they're looking for as far as their investment is, you know, their portfolio. It's been a lot of fun, and I really enjoy doing and working with investors and helping them get to their goals.
Yeah, now, so we started Alpine in January of 2005, and actually was it November of 2005? November of 2005, Dad got sick, leukemia, and 3 days later he was dead. 57 years old. In fact, he and I were buying properties here in Indy, and we went back to the West Coast, and he was like, yeah, I feel kind of sick. I think I have this infection in my finger. I'm going to go have it checked out. And they said, yeah, you have massive leukemia. It's spread throughout your whole body, and you really only have a few weeks left. It was only a few days. And he was 430 pounds. I'll always remember that because it was on the digital scale at the foot of his hospital bed. And he always struggled with his weight. Work always came first. He didn't have balance. Workaholic. And so, Brant and I both can put on the pounds pretty quick. we all 7 of us kids, weight is always a challenge. And in fact, June 1st, I was up to 275 again. So for the last 2 months, I've been eating salads and energy and protein drinks and rabbit food, and now I'm back down to 255. But it's always a battle, and it was a battle that Dad just lost. And I know they said it was leukemia and heart failure, but I gotta believe it's your body can't carry 430 pounds and not have some adverse effect. But Brant wasn't living here then. I wasn't permanently here then, and we always kind of laugh about the fact that he would be tickled to know that 2 of his kids actually have completely transplanted and are living in Indy and working with our cousins and our uncles, and it's been a very cool thing to be here and to build this operation here, because originally we just set it up to spend our own money. And so, for example, one of the things we did was we said, when we do this property management company, we don't want it to run any profit, because why would we run profit off our own properties? We just want it to break even. And we said, how much do we need to charge ourselves for Alpine to break even? We messed with the numbers and we finally came up with, we need to mark our construction up 15% of our cost. So if we know it's going to be $10,000 to do a rehab, we need to tack $1,500 on top of that and pay that to Alpine, because we need that $1,500 for liability insurance and office and cell phones and staff and employees. Does that make sense? And then we need to charge ourselves 10% of the rent. That's where we came up with that. And when you look at all of the expenses that go into management, the salaries and the cell phones and the utilities and insurance, because we have to carry insurance as both a management company and a general contractor. We had to structure it because we're doing budgets and cutting checks, and we're general contractors, so we have to carry insurance for that. So when you add up all of those expenses, that was the number we came up with. And we've kept it that way. So one of the biggest benefits when you buy a property from us is we don't care if you use this for management or not, because we don't make any money from management. Management is not a profit center. It was never built that way. It was built for me, my money, Dad's, and his partners. And we've never changed that. So when you buy a property from us, we are happy to do the management for you, because we feel like it's part of our warranty of stepping up to the plate. There are a lot of other companies that sell properties, but I don't know of another company that sells properties and owns the management company. Think about what that implies. Because why would I do junkie rehab knowing that I got to call you in 6 months and tell you that you have all these maintenance issues? Why would I be sloppy and throw tenants in the house knowing that I got to call you in a year and tell you that we have to evict them? It really is a built-in warranty that the same guy who's selling you the house, Aaron, is the same guy whose email address that you have and cell phone number when you get to the management side. It's seamless. That's why we're so busy, because nobody else is willing to do that like we are. There's a big company in Memphis that sells houses, but they outsource the management. And you get on Ripoff Report, you get on the internet, and you see the complaints, and you see the lawsuits. They're all based on management, on the background. And so that's why, one of the reasons why Rich Dad wanted to do a contract with us, because as they vetted us out, they were like, well, how are you guys doing it? We said, because we step up to the plate on the management side. We try to average about $8,000 to $10,000 on each property we sell. That's our target profit. Sometimes we make less, sometimes we make a little more, but on the last probably 200 houses that we've sold, we hit that pretty consistently. But we had a house a couple weeks ago that it had a brand new roof. Well, the roof was about 3 years old when we bought it at the auction, but the roofers had laid it incorrectly. What's that called? The channel or the seam? The valley of the roof was incorrect. So water was getting in under there, and we didn't see it at the time because it had been pretty dry. The guys went through. We sold the house, and next big rainstorm, we realized what had happened, but the house was already sold to the investor. What do you think I did? Fix the roof. You think I called the investor up and said, your roof's leaking, I think you just bought this property from me a couple weeks ago. And could you imagine how horrible that would be for my reputation, for our business? So I put a new roof on it. So I thought I made $8,500 on that house. I really made $4,000, but think of the trust now that I have from that investor. Because first we told him, hey, your roof's leaking. What? I just bought that property, turnkey. Yep, and I'm going to put a new one on. Why? Well, because it's a big picture for us. Because we're selling out every month. We have this group in Singapore that love buying properties. They're phenomenal. And whatever we don't sell today, we'll send to them tomorrow. In fact, we won't, because we have 100 investors coming to Dallas next weekend to buy properties from us. So whatever doesn't get sold this week, we'll sell next weekend. Right now, I think we only have about 45 houses to sell. Well, now, we bought 9 this week, and we'll keep buying, but we haven't been able to build up over 50 properties in inventory for a couple of years. That's how busy we've been. And it's a good problem to have, because a lot of times people come to the field training wondering, all right, when are they going to sit down and try to push me on a house or try to sell me? We won't. We don't. My brother, this contractor is the salesman this weekend. Okay? My brother. We brought him in. He's here to answer questions. He's very knowledgeable. He's an investor. He's a millionaire. He's been with this program since day one. So I figure I'd rather have somebody who knows everything about what we do than a salesperson. Does that make sense? There's no pitch. We don't do that. Because we sell our houses out every month. So we don't care if you come and you just soak up knowledge this weekend and then you leave. We're fine with that. We find that at every single bus tour, people come to us and say, yeah, I love those houses. I want 2 or 3 of those. Or I want to buy a property like that. And they'll tell Brent that, and they'll tell Megan. In fact, Megan, why don't you come up real quick? Megan, talk about your background with our company.
So I started about 8 years ago, right when the company was just starting. And I started actually doing maintenance for several years as I was home having babies. And as my kids started going off to school, I started spending more time in the office. So it was interesting because I saw the company kind of evolved, and I saw systems you put in place which were really there to serve the investors. So the last several years I've been helping investors find properties, and that's what I'm doing full time now.
Yeah, Megan had 4 kids in 5 years. No twins, no step, no. She birthed them. And in fact, when she got pregnant with the 4th, we were like, what?
That's what I said.
Her oldest was 4. You know? So she's a super mom. She's one of the best multitaskers I've ever met. And before she and her husband decided to start having kids, for about 10 years, Megan made a very, very nice 6-figure income. She was in customer service and sales for Saks Fifth Avenue. I knew that Megan had had babies, and her husband Mike is a police officer here in town. And they had made the decision she was going to be a stay-at-home mom, so she left a 6-figure income, and they were living off a 5-figure cop's salary, having their family. And that was their values, and that was their priorities. And I said to her, Megan, what if we need a maintenance coordinator, because Megan was our first maintenance coordinator. In fact, Tiffany and Carmen together replaced Megan a couple of years ago. She was with us from 50 properties up to when we got to about 600 under management. So I said, I need someone to take the calls, get approval from the work from the owners, deal with the contractors. I need you to basically run your own little company. And I said, it's a really tough job because nobody's happy to talk to the maintenance coordinator. Tenants aren't happy that something broke. Owners don't want to hear about repairs, and contractors hate that you're always beating them up on the price. So all 3 of those groups, it's kind of adversarial. I need someone with tact, I need somebody with great people skills, I need somebody with great leadership skills, and I need you to manage this own little company type of thing that you have going on. And she's like, well, I got my kids, I can't come to work. And I said, that's okay. I said, because you can take all those calls with a Bluetooth headset and be changing diapers.
And I have done that.
She has done that. What is it you say? You go in the pantry?
Oh, I hide in the pantry and throw chocolate chips at them.
At her kids.
Keep it quiet.
She's talking to a tenant. She was like hiding in the pantry throwing chocolate chips out at the kids to keep quiet. All moms have done that?
Oh yeah, don't judge me.
How about I not have to change those diapers, chocolate chip diapers?
I leave those for Mike.
So, yeah, we brought her in. We just said, look, we'll give you a laptop, we'll give you the phone, we'll give you access to QuickBooks Online, and run it, and do it from home. And so we were able to match up her values, which was staying at home, with our needs, and we ended up with someone who we never could have afforded. Because if she was in the working world, she would have been making 150 grand a year working at Saks. And so we were able to afford a caliber of person who never that before. In fact, what I did with both Brand and Megan was say, look, I can't pay you guys a ton of salary because we run Alpine for break even. There's not a ton of money that we can pay, but I can let you invest with me. And I'm selling 20 houses a month. How about you do one and you do one? How about when I go to auction next month and I buy 15 houses, one will be yours and one will be yours. And you can keep those as rentals. And they both really love that idea. And so instead of a 401k or an IRA, that's what we've done with every employee at Alpine. Every single one of our employees in every single one of our markets is in the game. They do deals. So when we did the first bus tour, I sat down and thought, okay, what are the lessons that I've learned? I had to really sit down and encapsulate them. Let me show you. Thanks, Heather. What I didn't know about making money as a high school teacher. How I went from a 5-figure mentality to a millionaire. I want to spend some time talking about the 4 things that I've learned and that have changed the way I view money, that changed the way that I invest. So I want to be really specific about that. So, one of the first things is passive. Passive versus active. That first flip that I did, was it passive income or active income? See? You're not shouting out, you just might notice you don't understand it any more than I used to. Let's talk about passive and active income. All right. What's active income? What's that? High school teacher salary, my JOB. Ashley, from her active income, only makes a 5-figure income. But from her passive income, she makes a healthy 6-figure income. Isn't that interesting? Because I was telling them about how many deals you and Ryan do. In fact, the only reason she still does her active income is because it still allows her to have full access to that passive income. Does Ashley go to auction and buy those houses with that money? Nope. Does Ashley fix those houses up? Nope. Does Ashley find the tenants on those deals? Nope. Does Ashley take the maintenance calls? Nope. She's the boss of all the people that do all those things. But she doesn't do any of them. Isn't that interesting? One of the first things that I realized is those, now what is flipping houses? Active or passive? Active. Flipping property, for Ashley it's passive because she works for a company that flips a bunch of houses. But for most all other people, flipping is active. Now when I did the first flip and I made the $50,000, that was so sexy, wasn't it? A check to Aaron Adams, 50 grand. I had never had a check for more than $3,000 or $4,000, my teacher's salary. To get a $50,000 check at closing, knowing that everything was paid off and it was just me, that's sexy. That was adrenaline rush, right? Who has done their first flip and had that kind of a check? Anyone? Isn't it awesome? It never gets any better than the first one. I can tell you it's diminishing returns. You did take a picture? I love that. Ashley. One of the things that's been interesting for Ashley is she's been here since day one with Indy, and now every month I fly her to Dallas or to Kansas City, and now soon she's going to add Orlando, because she's in charge of making sure everything in our markets runs the same. Because she and I have been, a lot of the brain power behind the systems. And what's been interesting to you as we've grown into other markets? What are some of the things that you've seen?
It's been interesting going into the different markets and seeing, like with Dallas, their vacancy rate is basically 0. but you're going to pay a little bit more for the house. Just going into the different markets and working with the different property management companies and then customizing them to the system so that it's overall the same for the end user, the investor that's holding the property.
Really, Ashley's job isn't a property manager, she's a systems specialist, because we've always been growing. We've never stopped. The one thing we always joke about in the office is that you never get to stasis. You never get to a stability point because we've always been so busy. And so that's really been Ashley's focus. Because think about the systems you need for single-family home management. Think of like lock boxes. We had to figure out who should buy them. Do we buy them or do we charge the owners for it? Does it tie to the house? Do we leave it at the house? Do we keep them in the office? How do we code them? If we code them all the same, then one guy could rob all of our houses. Do we just leave it as a sunk cost and then throw it away at the end because they're only $3? And why have a tracking system for lock boxes? Do we make the leasing agents do it? Think of all those things we had to figure out. Because, yeah, a couple lock boxes on 3 houses isn't a big deal. When you got 1,000 properties and at any given time, 50 to 100 of them are vacant, it's a big deal. And so, managing 40 properties is not 400 properties. And we've had to develop systems to manage thousands of properties in one location. So that's what we have now. So it's been interesting, and that's where, so once you buy a property from us, Ashley becomes your go-to person on management issues or questions that you have. She's great with that, so thanks, Ashley.
Thank you.
In fact, Ryan, her husband, who works with us, is actually working. He didn't come this morning, did he?
He's here.
Oh, Ryan, come on up. Yeah, Ryan and I are actually working on some new systems for leasing because we are getting so busy with leasing that we are building. Ryan's been working with me on another model. Now, Ryan is an economics major. He's as extroverted as I am, Ryan is introverted. I know that all morning he's been hating the thought of sitting up here. Because Ryan's a behind the scenes guy. Ryan is my go-to guy for buying properties. When I'm not in town, he gets the $500,000 in cashier's checks. And Ryan built a very successful leasing company. Over the years, he knows Indianapolis street by street. He knows rental rates street by street. And so when I first started buying at auction, I thought, who better to help me go look at properties on auction day than Ryan? Well, soon, we would always give letter grades to deals. So I'd say, Ryan, XYZ address, starting bid $30,000, go drive by and tell me what you think. And he'd say, yeah, at $30,000, that's an A deal, or an A- or a B+. Well, after a couple of years, he and I had the exact same grades all the time, because we both were seeing things the same way. And so he's really taken over a huge brunt of the acquisitions that we do. And Ryan is my partner in Wholesale houses. And I don't know, what am I missing?
That's the majority.
Yeah, Ryan is a very, very, very talented artist. And one of the things that I love about what he's done is he's used real estate as a way to fund his love of art instead of the other way around. That's why he has enough to eat. Okay. But talk about it, because you got the coolest project. Ryan, tell them about your deal, the building you bought.
It was vacant for 8 years, 9 years, something like that. But it's a 10,000 square foot. It used to be a nursing home. So there's 20 hospital rooms, and found it at the tax sale.
For how much?
For $16,000.
10,000 square foot building, nursing home, 20 rooms, 16 grand, partly because it had a ginormous skylight that wasn't originally built, AKA huge hole in the roof, like waterfalls coming out here.
Yeah, it's had all kinds of problems, but the goal is to convert each hospital room into an art studio, and then use the common space as like gallery and art show space. So.
Yeah, in my home, in our offices, in his home, Ryan's artwork, he does amazing things mixing mediums. Like he did some covered bridges for me that had spray paint, oil, and I mean everything. He's really, really talented. And so Ryan's not passionate about real estate. Ryan's passionate about art. But he realized that by being really good at real estate, he could have as much time and as much money to spend on art as he wanted. Isn't that interesting? If you think about it, millionaire mindset is make enough money passively to do what you want to do. 5-figure mindset is, how do I get a second job and make more earned income? Anybody have a second job? Raise your hand. Quit your second job and focus on building passive income. You will never regret that. Because 5-figure spend gets I know one of my contractors has 2 8-hour day jobs, and he sleeps like 6 hours. I mean, he's a slave to that. And I just think, if you tweak the focus to passive, it would make a huge difference. Thanks, Ryan. Now this is Prodigy. That's his nickname in our office, Prodigy. Jake, how old are you?
23.
Where did you grow up?
Reno, Nevada.
Reno, Nevada. Where did you go to college?
Reno, Nevada.
Reno, Nevada. And why are you living in Indiana? For the skiing.
Exactly.
There's no skiing here.
Number 1 was to be closer to my fiance, and number 2 was
That's it, Dina. I said, everybody turn around and wave. Dina waves to her. Hi, Dina. He's so lucky she said yes, isn't he?
And then number 2 was the real estate market, because I was learning about real estate and I was dying to get started and get going, and I just didn't have the capital for the West Coast market.
Jake and his father, I met them at a real estate seminar that I was teaching at in California 3 years ago, 2 years ago?
Over 3 years ago.
Over 3 years ago. And we chatted and connected, and Jake came to one of our bus tours about 3 years ago with his dad. And he came up to me during the week and he said, hey, I want to work with you guys. I see what you guys are doing. It's really cool. Dina goes to school near here, up at Purdue, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. How far is Lafayette from here? Hour and a half? An hour. Depending on who's driving?
Yeah.
So he said, so I want to come out there. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, you're going to college in Reno. And I didn't think he was serious. And he showed up and said, hi, I'm moving to Indy. Remember me? Met you in Cali, came out to your bus tour. I'm moving out here. And I said, okay, Jake, well, I don't have a job for you, bro. And he said, that's okay. He said, I saved up. I have what I think is 1 year's worth of expenses. I'm getting a real estate license. And I'm going to go find, I know you need deals. I'm going to go find them. Like, okay, stalker. And he said, just tell me what you need me to do. And I said, we have one of those marketing docs. I said, all right. So I'm thinking, what do I hate doing more than anything? Every property that we buy, we have to do 50 of these marketing docs like you have in your book, okay? You gotta put the pictures in the little template, update all the bedrooms, bath, put the rent amount, you gotta run the numbers on the pricing, figure it all out, okay? It would take me 10 to 15 minutes to do each one of these. Times 50. It was one of my things I hated the most because it was minutia. It was, but I didn't trust anyone else to do it because you still got to be on your game. You don't want to be putting, 27,000 here, or get the numbers wrong, or put the wrong rent rate, or get the description wrong. So it was still important enough that I had to do it. So tell you what, Jake, you want to work with us? Take this over for me. I hate doing these marketing docs. I would love for you to know. Now I knew that Jake was a finance major in college, and it really requires somebody who has that methodical, analytical, intelligence. Because I tried to let one of my other non-methodical, analytical employees do this, and it was a train wreck. We had some crazy deals come out. So, people were like, I'll take that one! No, it's not $15,000 a month in rent. So Jake's like, I'll do it. I said, all right, well, I'm not going to pay you to do it, but I'll mentor you. Just to see what he'd say. Because one of the things that I found is 5-figure mindsets hate working if they don't know how much they're making. W-2s, 5-figure people, do not want to do work if they can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. They hate that. Millionaires are like, all right, I can see how down the road that could turn into money for me. I'll do it. See the difference? Mm-hmm. So it's I use it as a little test. So I said, all right, Jake, you do these marketing docs and I'll mentor you. Because what would his 5-figure question would have been? How much are you going to pay me per marketing doc, right? He tried to be working towards a JOB. But he didn't care about that. He really and truly wanted to learn and wanted to be an investor and wanted to make a lot of money. So he said, all right, I'll do it, no problem. And he was amazing at it. I taught him how to do it in, what, an hour maybe? But because he had the brain for it, he had the ability for it, he owned it. It's funny because Jake has an assistant now. Okay? So Jake started the marketing docs and he started bringing us deals. And how much did you save up for what you thought was 1 year of living expenses?
I had about 28 grand savings.
28,000. And we started partnering up on deals. And I think Jake spent at least that on the engagement ring he bought for Nina. But he's making a ton of money now. How many deals have you done? What's your 1 year mark? Did we pass your 1 year mark?
Well, I bought my first property in September of last year.
Yes, you're at the 1 year mark. And how many deals have you sourced and bought and partnered upon since then?
Close to 60.
60 deals. That deserves a round of applause. And I know Jake will be a millionaire. He has a millionaire mindset. He's okay with delayed gratification. He's okay with long-term thought and learning big picture. My only question is how long he'll be working with us before he starts on his own, right? And my only focus is finding some way to partner up with him, not suppress him as my employee and make money off of him, passively. I told you, you go anywhere in the country, wherever you in Indiana want to live, and we'll add an outline there. Because then Jake will do 20 houses a month, 30 houses a month, 40 houses a month, and some of them will be mine. See that? Because all I'm focused on is growing my passive income. Because just like with each of my tenants going to their Popeye's chicken jobs, that money that they work with their active income becomes time that I don't have to spend. Because what's my one limitation every day? Time. I can only make so much money actively. I'm limited by time. But as you grow that passive income, and as you obsess about passive income, that's really what it becomes. Because once you get the little vision in your brain that the only way you're going to really be a millionaire and build wealth is through your passive growth. Anybody see that 60 Minutes special a couple weeks ago on Michael Jackson?
Yeah.
You saw it?
Yeah.
I was fascinated because when he died, his estate was in the hole $500 million. He had just borrowed $350 million, I think they said, against future revenues of his songs to fund the tour that he was working on. So his estate, when they added up all deposit, $500 million. The one thing that he had, because they just made $500 million in profit. Now this is what I think he died. Was it
6 or 8 years? I thought they said.
Yeah, and this year it was like $500 million in profit, right?
More money than all other artists together. Right?
Yeah, more money than all other artists together. Guess what it was that turned it around? His death knell. No, I wish I could say it was rental income. It's not rental income. But it was passive.
Intellectual property he bought.
Intellectual property that he bought. He obsessed about buying the music rights to other artists' songs. Guess whose songs he owns almost all of? Beatles. He owns all those Beatles songs. So every time somebody wants to use a Beatles song in a commercial, guess who gets paid now? Michael Jackson's estate. When you buy the rights to a song, is it passive or active?
Passive.
So, Beatles song. Let me put that up here. Okay, so that's the thing that saved him. You see how your 5-figure mindset has been limiting the way that you think? Because I hear all the time students come to me and say, hey, so yeah, I get the whole rental property thing, but what they're really saying is that's not sexy. What I really want to talk to you, Aaron, is can we do some flips? Can you flip money for me? Like, can you flip some houses and can I have that money from the flips? You see that? When they should be saying, can you give me amazing deals and how can I be sure that you're going to take care of them passively forever so I can make money from that? Thanks, Jake. Right? Because if you try to get somebody to make too much money for you passively, then they'll find a way to get out of that relationship. That's why no one will ever flip houses passively for you unless there's some bigger reason for that. There has to be a one hand washes the other relationship. Because why wouldn't they just do it themselves? Why wouldn't they just borrow the money from a hard money lender and do it themselves? Why would they do that for you? Does that make sense? In fact, I think that on the passive side, anytime you get up to about 12% passive that somebody's making for you, someone's going to find out if they're making more than 12% for you, they're going to find a way to convert it to active and take it from you. See that? I get really suspicious if somebody tells me they're making more than 12% passive. Now, your active income, if you're making less than 12%, something's wrong on your active income. Okay, so if you have 100,000 and you're only making 6,000 a year, actively doing it yourself, then something's really wrong. But on your active income, the sky's the limit. On my active income, I won't look at anything worth less than 60% on my cash. You see that? So you need to think about returns, everything. So when somebody, I had somebody, a Ponzi scheme, somebody pitched me on it, and they're like, look, it's international money trading, and it's insured by Lloyd's of London. They start throwing out all this thing, but it's going to pay you 6% a month, compounding monthly. Like, whatever. That's, because that would have been like 18,000% a year. It was stupid. And that Ponzi scheme was in Southern California, raised hundreds of millions of dollars from people because they didn't understand what a good return is. They couldn't separate passive and active returns out in their minds, and so they just took the hook line. Anytime you hear about somebody in a Ponzi, has anybody ever lost money in a Ponzi scheme? Anytime you hear about it, be suspicious of the returns. We've really been able to blow up some convention as we've built Alpine because at the end of the day, it's never been about profit, it's been about making it work. So we don't care how many tenants went in this month as much as we care, did we have to evict anyone? That's a much bigger deal to us. You see how the different, it's totally different? So one of the things that you'll see as you meet our staff is, look at Ashley. Ashley has a completely different personality than I do. Her strengths, most of her strengths are my weaknesses. In fact, Ashley and I are the two signers on all the bank accounts here in Indy for Alpine. Millions of dollars. I'm never allowed to move money in those accounts because I'm such a bad accountant, which Ashley is an accountant. Just things like that. Her strengths, my weaknesses. So if you meet our team, and as you meet them, whereas I may be here, this is Sharon.
Hello, everybody. Some of you I know. Hello again.
And this is Ellen. How many of you have met and talked to Ellen? And it's Rebecca. How many of you have met and talked to Rebecca? Sharon was managing a 52-unit apartment complex we bought, and actually, no. When we first bought it, you were one of our tenants.
CLE.
Yeah. And so she had been around. She's done leasing. She's done Section 8. She's been around real estate forever. She's done a lot with the city, working with subsidized housing, low-income projects. She has a very diverse background. But when we first met Sharon, she was actually had some serious health issues. And what was it exactly that?
I had ruptured discs in my neck. My 5 and my 6 disc ruptured, which caused me to actually be paralyzed. They hurt. The discs ruptured so bad that there was pieces of them just sitting on my spinal cord, and it inflamed so bad that I could no longer work. I had 2 kids, working a full-time job, almost between 50 to almost 60 hours a week because I was managing retail stores, and I completely, totally lost my mind. My whole world caved in, completely caved in. Did not know what I was going to do. Really didn't have any family support. And in comes this man with this affliction t-shirt on and flip-flops, and they really took care. He didn't know me from Adam, Eve, Cain, nor Abel. However, we began to talk and develop a relationship. Lord Jesus, Aaron, and this other gentleman that used to be with the company named Jimmy. And we really built a rapport, and he saw something in me and was like, okay, well, I want you to manage this apartment building, and I did that. Now, the thing for me, though, is, again, I didn't know him, so I had to trust him, right? I couldn't walk. I was going through therapy. He actually sent people over to my house to move me into another apartment building because I was on the 3rd floor. I couldn't go up those steps. He made sure that my children's needs were met. He made sure that he sent somebody over to make sure that I was okay. I mean, and I entrusted him just with my whole life. And he never, I can't tell you a time he's ever let me down.
Well,
ever.
Yeah, because I'm getting embarrassed. But you know what though? It wasn't charity.
It wasn't.
Because Sharon was capable, and she was smart, and she had good leadership, and she knew every person in that building, and she was good at managing and telling people no and getting the rent. And so for us, we saw an asset, and what we do with anyone that we meet is, how do we get you to the next step in your life? Like, where do you want to be 9 months from now, 18 months from now, or think you want to be, and how can I help you do that? Zig Ziglar, anybody ever heard of him?
Oh, yeah.
To get what you want, help other people get what they want. A lot of people give lip service to that, but I mean, think about Megan. What did she want? A little bit of extra money. What do we want? Somebody who was really good, that could take care of our tenants. So by focusing on getting her some extra money and staying home with her kids, we got this amazing person. With Sharon, I met her, and oh, she's bright, she's talented, she's a great communicator, she's got great leadership. What do you need? Well, let's send some guys over to move. Hello, in a heartbeat. You see how you really can have win-win if you're focused on understanding where they're at and moving that forward. That's really what Megan and what Brant are here to do with each one of you. Okay, because some of you have an IRA with 150 grand that you're making 3% on. The next step is to get that money into 10% deals. That is the next step for you. You know, some of you have some cash sitting in a savings that's making 1%. The next step is to maybe get you into some deals and maybe get you into some other things that we can make. But that's why we have them here, to help you figure out what that next step is for you. Are we going to passively make any of you millionaires? Maybe if you have 500 or 600 grand, I can. Right? But if you have 50,000, I can at least get you going from 3% up to 10. See the difference? Is it a guaranteed return? Nope. Only guaranteed. If you want a guaranteed return, I will give you 2% guaranteed on your money. I will put it on my Social Security. You tell me what you want. That's way cheaper than Richard Bundy money. So if anybody wants it, I offer that to people all the time. So you give me the money, I'll secure it with every asset that I own, because 2% money is great. We said, hey, why don't you come lease properties? You could make more bartending leasing our properties out, this was a few years ago, than you could ever make bartending. And if you're leasing properties, it's during the day, so you can be home with Alana at night. Okay, next step in her life, right? Make a little more money, but more importantly to her, be at home after school, be at home at night with Alana. See that? With each person, it was knowing what the next step was. Now with Ellen, it was just a ruthless need for more cash. Just kidding.
I get to stay home and work.
No, Ellen, okay, check this out. How old's your baby?
4 months.
4-month-old baby. Does she look amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah. We had the boys were out here for the 4th of July. We brought them out, and so we all had a pool party. And okay, so first of all, Becca shows up with Alana with presents for my boys, because that's how Becca is, right? Like, we thought you guys wanted some goggles, you know.
I think with their eyes to her.
Yeah, they didn't want to. We just wanted Casey and Tommy to feel welcome in Indiana. Yeah, and Alana's like, here, right? Ellen shows up, 2-month-old baby, 6-pack.
Yeah. Super rude to the rest of us.
No, but for Ellen, it has been about being at home with those little kids. And so one of the things that we have Ellen doing right now is we get hundreds of leads from people every week that are interested in working with us, buying properties and stuff. She's on the phone at home right now, because where she's at, she's got a 4-month-old, and she doesn't want to take the baby to daycare. So, in fact, we would love to bring Ellen on the road when we go do, like next weekend in Dallas, we'll be down there. Sharon will be there, Becca will be there. But Ellen, that's not the next step in her life right now. And she needs to be home with baby, and so we're cool with that. We don't care. We just like having her experience with our company and her knowledge of who we are. Can you see how every person that you're going to interact with has a different kind of perspective, about who we are? Because I want you for today and tomorrow to really get it and see how we're put together. And we're 100% transparent because I really believe that's the only way you're going to trust us. And if you don't trust me, and if you don't trust our company, that we're not going to take advantage of you or sell you a property that's overpriced or sell you something in the ghetto or sell you something that doesn't work, then we can't work together. Do you see that? And that's why we're so committed to being candid and to just laying it out for you over these 2 days. Because the investors that trust us are the ones we have the best relationship with because we value that trust. And I know this sounds like bullshit, but my hand to God on my Father's grave and my children, I've never lost a penny of any of my investors' principal. I haven't. I've never defaulted on a loan. I've never declared bankruptcy. I've never been sued by a partner. And I've had deals where we didn't make money, or maybe I had deals where we lost money on that deal, but then we made it back. But I'm very conservative when it comes to that. And I take your money and your retirement and the product of your active income very, very seriously. Because I still remember how it felt 14 years ago to wonder if I could afford a $200 payment on my Hyundai Accent and whether that would be too much for me. And I remember how it felt having 9,000 of my $10,000 credit card maxed out, okay, and not being able to afford the real estate education that I wanted to buy. And I remember what it felt like to have a negative net worth of $200,000 because I had a mortgage for $159,000. So that hasn't ever left me. And I think that real millionaires remember what it was like to be the five-figure mentality and hold on to those lessons very tightly. Give a round of applause. Now we've talked about passive income. You guys understanding that differently now? We've talked about systems. You're meeting our team. Two other things I want to talk about, and they're kind of interconnected. One is recourse versus non-recourse. Because I did not understand, when I was a teacher, what a non-recourse loan was. Okay, but let's start by defining a recourse loan. Raise your hand if you have a credit card. What happens if you don't pay the credit card? What's the recourse? They screw up your credit. What happens if how many of you have a mortgage on your house that you live in? And you signed on it with your name? Recourse or non-recourse? If you don't pay, they take the house and they ruin your credit. What about your car loan? Same thing. What about student loans? Recourse. So what's a non-recourse loan? Some hard money loans are non-recourse, meaning if you default on the loan, they just take the property. It wasn't on your credit to begin with. They didn't tie it to your Social Security. Somebody was saying.
So it's they evaluate the property and the condition of the property and the cash flow. And if you default, they can take the property back if they won't split the
Exactly. Okay. So a non-recourse loan, I didn't know these existed. A non-recourse loan is one where if you don't pay it or you default, the only thing they take is what they secured it with. So the house, they take the house back. Interesting. How many of you want a non-recourse loan? Okay, right? Who wouldn't want it not on your credit? So one of the things that I learned, I've learned this probably in the last 4 or 5 years. Billionaires and multimillionaires never do recourse loans if they can help it. Not all, but I would say the majority. It kept popping up with me. So I'm golfing in Chicago with some partners that I have. One of them is worth, I know for a fact, $70 million. And he says to me, hey, so on these indie properties, why don't I just get a non-recourse loan from MB Financial. It's a business bank that he works with. I just get a non-recourse loan for $4 million, and I'll do some deals with you. And I said, okay. I said, how do you get those? He's like, I just call the banker. And I said, well, with a non-recourse loan, then what's the angle? Like, do you pay more? He said, yes, you do pay more. Right now, non-recourse loans are 7, 8, 9, 10%. Which a lot of people go, well, why would I want, I'd rather have a recourse loan for 3, 4, 5, 6%, right? But the reason that millionaires and multimillionaires hate recourse loans is because one bad recourse loan can get in all of your other investments' pockets and loot you. Does that make sense? So let's say you have a $1 million recourse loan on an investment property, and there's a lawsuit, and you get sued, and the judgment comes back for $5 million. Well, yeah, you're screwed on the property, and then they're going to start hunting for the other $4 million with your other assets. And it goes back to what I was really talking about. When you have it, you don't want to lose it. And so when you have non-recourse, that's not even on the table anymore. When you have a non-recourse loan, the only thing they can take right from the start is the asset. And so high wealth individuals only want non-recourse loans. Isn't that interesting? Because I didn't even know they really existed. I didn't understand them. I got a call from a friend of mine named Rob. Rob Blomker, Bloemker. He worked for Putnam Investments, which is located where? Wall Street. Lehman Brothers, located where? Wall Street. Salomon Brothers, located where? Wall Street. With over 20 years of investment experience in fixed income and specializing in mortgage-backed securities, Rob has invested through numerous regional and national housing cycles. He has managed investment teams of specialists managing over $60 billion in assets, and has developed a strong process for identifying and capturing opportunities across various markets. So I get a call one day from Rob, a couple years ago. Hey Aaron, I've been researching. I have $300 million in a private equity fund. And I said, what is private equity? He's like, well, like Mitt Romney has Bain Capital. He's like, it's just a bunch of my rich friends that we put $300 million together. I said, okay. And who are you? And he's like, I'm the general partner. They're all my limited partners. I said, okay. So you get to make all the decisions on the $300 million. He said, yep. I said, all right. He said, I've been researching your company. I see that you have Alpine in Dallas. I see that you have Alpine in Kansas City. I see that you have Alpine in Indianapolis. I would like to buy you. I'd like to buy your company. And I said, why? He said, because there's never been a better time to buy single-family homes. Like, Wall Street has never bought single-family homes. In fact, Warren Buffett was on MSNBC. Where is that article? Warren Buffett was just on MSNBC this year saying that he wishes he could buy a couple hundred thousand single-family homes, but he couldn't do it because it's too hard to do the management. He's like, exactly. That's why I want to buy you. Because you've been doing management, and you have 1,000 properties. And you're doing it across multiple markets, so you clearly have good systems. So that's why I want to buy you. And I'm like, okay, well, what's that going to mean for, so I just get a cash out? Because then I'm thinking, ooh, I bet I could buy like 400 houses and just be, it's like 100,000 a month, 200,000 a month. I'm done. And he's like, no, you're going to work for me. You're going to run the company. I need you to just keep doing what you're doing because you're going to get, $10 million. I'm like, all right, so what's my first stop? Idaho.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I'm like, no, you don't want me as an employee, bro, because I bounce every 9 days. And I'm MIA. And that's not going to change. I'm going to just tell you right now, that won't happen. I said, that's not on the table at all. He goes, okay, well, let me come check your operation out. I said, look, I talked to Blackstone, I talked to Colony Capital, basically at the beginning of 2012, for the first time ever, Wall Street made the decision to go into single-family homes. It's the biggest trend that's been in real estate in the last 24 months. It's unprecedented. A lot of what people are saying is a housing recovery is the $20 billion that private equity funds raised to buy single-family homes. Because what did they buy beforehand? Strip malls, apartment complex. I mean, the biggest REIT in the world, Simon Properties, is right here. Simon Brothers, two Jewish brothers from Long Island. The one comes out here for military, decides to get a job in Indianapolis. This is in the 1960s. Gets a job as a leasing agent for commercial properties, renting out strip mall space. Decides to buy a strip mall with his brother. Biggest REIT. They own more malls than any REIT in the world right now. Anybody ever hear of a Simon gift card? Because they own probably the mall near your house. That's their specialty. And their world headquarters is here, you know? But they're a REIT. And all they buy is commercial. And there's other REITs, real estate investment trusts, that all they buy is apartments. But no one's ever bought single family. And I said to Rob, well, you're a $60 billion guy. Why don't you do like Blackstone and raise $12 billion? He goes, because I don't think you can spend it. So I only raised $300 million. I'm like, that's interesting. And I said, well, what markets are you in? He's like, the same markets all the other guys are in. I said, what are they? You guys want to know what they are? Because if you're trying to do flips in these markets, good luck, you're competing with private equity. What do you think they are? New York, California, Chicago, Phoenix, Las Vegas, Atlanta. Well, what's that? Texas. He said, you know, we're all competing for these inventory. He's like, but I really love Indy and I really love Kansas City. He says, because when you raise $100 million, Aaron, you only have to pay 4% non-recourse. I'm like, wait a minute. You borrowed $100 million at 4% interest and it's non-recourse? I said, I thought non-recourse was like 8, 9, 10%. He said, they are for under $500,000. But he said, if you can demonstrate that you can spend $100 million and get it into play and it's an investment they're comfortable with, he's like, there's sovereign wealth funds, billion-dollar sovereign wealth funds that'll loan that money to you. They just don't want to mess with a $500,000 loan. If you got $1 billion under management, you don't want to chop up $1 billion in $500,000 loans. That's a lot of different things to manage. You'd rather give $500 million to him, $100 million to him, right? I'm like, I'm listening to him thinking, this is like the rules the millionaires, the billionaires are playing by, you know? So far from get title insurance on a duplex. You know, that was my year one lesson that I'm learning in my education. And how much has changed. What's that?
This is all green hotels.
Right, exactly. He said it's all red hotels now.
Yeah, right.
Right? I started with Mediterranean. Okay. And now I'm learning how Rob develops hotels on Park Place. I mean, but has anything really changed though?
No.
Isn't it funny? It's like I've had to learn about private placement memorandums and limited partners and general partners and SEC accounting requirements, but they're not any different than the lessons I learned about not running a brothel at your trailer park, and right? They're just different rules of the game, and rules of the game that wealthy play by, that others don't. And which has been cool. That's encouraging to me, because doesn't that feel more empowering to you? Shouldn't that feel more empowering to you?
Yeah.
Because as you learn the rules and you play by those rules, then you benefit from the same things that they do. I mean, think about it. There was a whole article in the New York Times about how Mitt Romney managed to get $300 million in his self-directed IRA. Because Ellen, how much can you contribute a year to your IRA? $5,500. Yeah, Mitt Romney has $300 million in there. At $5,500 a year, that means that he's like, I mean, he's got great hair. And he looks pretty young. But he's got to be, what, 18,000 years old? Something like that. Okay. How has he done it? Because he has a whole different set of rules. Ellen only thought she could put $5,500 in there. Not so. Not when you use offshore accounts and different types of entity structure. And the New York Times laid this all out in an article. Check it out. How Mitt Romney's used offshore investments and offshore asset protection to build a $300 million IRA. Did you know that you could do that? No. But can you read the article and then mimic the structure? You sure can. See the difference? how you can literally take your 5-figure mentality and catapult it and move it and see things the same way. So Rob said, he came out here and we spent the day and I really liked him. He was just a really cool guy. You know what's funny is that he raised a $300 million private equity fund to buy houses. He doesn't know anything about real estate. He'd be looking at a house and be like, so, how do you guys do pricing for that roof? Duh. What's Section 8? I've heard about that. I'm like, Rob, you raised $300 million, you don't know anything about real estate. He's like, well, they're mutually exclusive, Aaron. What do you mean? He's like, you don't have, they didn't say to me, Rob, how do you figure out the price of a roof on a rental property in Indianapolis? They said, Rob, what's your track record? Rob, what systems are you going to use? Rob, what's your game plan? And then they gave me $300 million. He's like, that's what I'm here to do with you, Aaron. Aaron, what's your track record? Aaron, what systems do you use? Aaron, what's the vision and what are you doing? I'm like, man, that's so different than my bus tours. I'm like, don't you want to go see a bunch of properties? He's like, no. Let's spend a couple hours with your staff. I want to talk to them. I want to see what you're using for property management. He's like, if you want, we can go see a couple houses, but I really don't care. I figure if I vet out the factory, then of course the products will come out consistent. Right? I said, yeah, that's true. No, that's how you got $300 million. Can I meet those guys that gave you the money, Rob? Right? And it's really interesting because, I get investors saying, well, I'm in Indy, but I really do need to still go to Dallas if I'm going to buy properties, and I got to check those all out. And I'm like, do you really? Is it? At the end of the day, aren't we just really working for you to trust and for you to believe that we've duplicated it? And isn't that really the end game? Because then otherwise it just becomes another active income stream for you because you're actively trying to do it instead of passively. Rob's never been back out. And we have $30 million right now that we're in Indy and then in Dallas and in Kansas City. And we're buying houses, and he's never seen anything we bought with his own eyes. And I think that's interesting. And we're doing great. We're his best performing markets. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Now think about this scenario, because Rob is considering partnering up with Deutsche Bank. Here's the contract we did. So this article came out in Bloomberg. Now, when was it? This article was written about 510 Capital and Rob because we were the first private equity group to borrow money from a bank. That was what this article was about. Deutsche Bank loaned us money, $100 million. And we get investors who are like, Aaron, I've been vetting you out, everything looks great. I'm like, oh, trust me. Think of the background check Deutsche Bank did on me. It was like a background prostate exam. I mean, it went back to the very first property that every LLC I've ever owned, every tax return, they looked at everything. And, there's definitely some speeding tickets. I just got one the other day. But that was it. It was cool. And in fact, the Deutsche guys came in here, and there's the contract. The Deutsche guys came in here and interviewed us, and they're like, we don't get you, Aaron. You don't make sense to us. But you're making $2, $3, $4 million a year, good for you. But you're really just a property manager. Why aren't you in Wall Street managing a $200 million fund, making $20, $30 million a year? And I'm like, 2 words, Idaho Falls. Right? And guess what? I don't have any debt. I got no bills. So $100,000 a month passive, when you don't have any mortgage payments, you don't have car payments, you don't have credit cards, it's a lot of money. And I'm cool with that. And I don't want to be 430-pound 57-year-old. And so I said, I don't want what you guys have, because I love Manhattan to visit. I like going out to dinner in the Village or Soho, or, I want to live there. Because you guys have crazy lives. And you're working 80, 90 hours a week. You have no balance. First thing that I do when I get up every day is come over here, next door. And I jog the canal, and I hit the weights. And what time do I get to the office, Ash? What's that? 1. Yeah, use your own 1. In fact, Wednesday, I had to do the radio show because my friend, Doug's not here, is he? Oh yeah, Doug's here. Doug, come in. So this is my friend Doug Dale, business partner. He and I do a radio show together on Saturday mornings. What's up, Doug? You look so smooth.
Thank you. I just participated in the Heart Walk.
Everybody say hi, Doug.
Hi.
Have a seat.
Thanks. Sit up here.
Yep. Has anyone had a chance to download the radio show from iTunes? We upload it. It's free. If you just type in Aaron Adams or Real Estate Investing Radio on iTunes, you get to listen to it while you work out. So we do it. It's every Saturday morning. In fact, right now it's on.
Is it?
Yes, it's on. Right now.
Yeah, you're right.
You should bring it up. It's on Freedom Night. It's in all of Indiana for Saturday mornings at 11. Freedom 95, 9:50 a.m. Doug, also, just like I do, has a private equity partnership with a group called ARP. So what's funny is Doug and I really kind of do a lot of the same stuff. We actually met each other through a Merrill Lynch advisor, who was a frat brother, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So he was one of Doug's fraternity brothers because Doug went to Butler University. He just ranked 18th best in the country.
Yeah. Two Midwest regional schools. So we'll take the best we can get, guys.
Best in the Midwest. Yeah. So Doug and I met each other, and now Doug's background had been with banking and big bold portfolios, and he's a serial entrepreneur. He's bought and sold several companies, and he had some great national banking relationships where he was getting big portfolios. They call them tapes of properties, and we got so busy that I couldn't get enough deals at auction, so we met and we started doing projects together. And it was funny because at the same time that we were talking about private equity, at the same time that I was talking to Rob and putting a contract with him, Doug was working with ARP, and they're based out of Phoenix. Now, how much did they raise on their public?
I think they only raised like 380 million maybe, but they had $1.5 billion in private capital already.
And then what markets are you guys buying right now?
Right now, I mean, we're in a lot of the same markets you are because obviously we work together. But so we're in Dallas, Kansas City with Aaron. We're obviously here in Indianapolis. We're in a small city called Brownsville in the southern tip of Texas, actually. We're just a lot of population growth from legal immigration, so you get a lot of population growth there. We're looking at Florida. We're looking at Omaha with you guys.
Yeah. So it's funny because Doug has his partners, his employees, his properties. I have my partners, my employees, my properties, my business, but I don't see him as a competitor, because that's poverty mentality. I see Doug as someone I can make a lot of money with. So when we go to auction and we both like the same property, what do? One of us buys it and we split it. Why give the bank an extra 10 grand bidding it up when we can just buy it and partner up on it together? That's the essence of what we do. And that's how we did the radio show. But we're each probably buying, you guys are averaging what, 40, 50 a month right now?
Yeah.
No, we're averaging close to 100. Crazy, huh?
Can you spend that much money that's being raised for single-family homes?
You can't spend the $12 billion that Blackstone raised, or how much did Colony raise?
The 380 million, the 300 million.
Yeah, because it's spread out over 7 markets.
Okay.
So like Orlando is really, right now for 510, Orlando has $1.5 million a month. That's only 12 houses. Chicago has $3 million a month for 510 money, and in Chicago that's only, their average price point is $175,000.
And look, they can all spend the money. The question is, can they spend it effectively?
Yeah.
Right? So some of the smaller funds like 510 and ARP is relatively smaller fund when you start talking about American Homes for Rent. You're talking about Blackstone and those guys, Colony. That what American Homes for Rent's up to 20,000 homes, I think. And Blackstone's up to like 40 or 50 or something crazy like that. So it depends on the fund, and they're spread out over various markets. Some of them aren't getting their money out the door.
I mean, so think about this. At any given time, there's bank accounts in Texas, Kansas City, and Indy with my name on them that 510 just keeps wiring $1 million in. There's always $1 million in those accounts. Completely non-recourse. Crazy, right? Different set of rules that millionaires play by in the way that they deal with money and the way they do it back and forth. Rob doesn't come to check to make sure that I didn't buy a Maserati with the money this week, because obviously we're going to get audited, and we get audited regularly, and I'll go to jail if I misuse the money. But if I buy a bad deal and lose money, it's just a bad deal. Isn't that interesting? Doesn't earn my credit. It doesn't show. Let's say we've purchased 400 houses for 510. Those aren't on my credit. Totally different mindset about recourse and non-recourse. You guys understand the difference? It's important because I will give you, any of you, a 50% down non-recourse loan on a house you buy from me in Texas, in Kansas City, or India. You gotta put 50% down, but it won't go on your credit. You don't have to qualify. We'll do it on any of our properties that you buy. Okay? Because what I do, now it's a 9% loan. It's over 15 years. And what I do is then I just take that 9% note and sell it to one of Rob's partners, who just holds on to it and takes the payment from you every month. Does that make sense? I don't make any money off them, but I know a lot of people that would rather be the bank for you than own the properties themselves. Because they already own a bunch of properties, so they want a balance in their portfolio.
Still do a full credit check and all that?
No credit check. You can take title in your dog's name. I don't care. Because you got to come in with 50% down. Right? But we'll do non-recourse loans for you, no problem. Now, a lot of times investors will ask me about, well, what if I just want to do recourse? What if I want to do a recourse loan on one of your properties and put 25% down? Well, hopefully you understand why I don't think that's a good idea. I mean, if you think about it, think about this. Doug and I go to auctions, and we buy properties that were somebody else's recourse loan. Yes or no?
Yes.
Right? Their property was a recourse loan gone bad, because that's how it got foreclosed on. Almost all recourse loans go bad because of one thing. The CLE. The catastrophic life experience. What are examples of CLEs?
Divorce.
Divorce is huge. What else?
Medical job.
Medical.
Yeah.
Loss of job.
Yeah.
Death. Now some people say, Aaron, look at the cash flow. If I get a recourse loan and I only put 25% down and they give me 5% over 30 years. Where if I get a non-recourse loan from you, I got to come in with more money down. It's 15 years, so it's a higher payment, and I'm not making, and my cash flow is much lower. It's 9%. They'll say they'll compare this a little bit. If I do my cash-on-cash return on this deal, Aaron, is going to be like 13%, and my cash-on-cash return on this is actually only like 8 or 9%. It's less than if I bought it cash. Why would I do that? Well, here's the problem with recourse loans. When you have 30 years on a property, I see that as 30 years of exposure to a CLE. What's the likelihood that that every person in this room will have a CLE in the next 30 years? 100%. You're all going to have one. With no matter what the intentions were, you're going to have a CLE. And you know what the problem is? Spreadsheets don't have a little section for CLEs. Right? Because everyone does the spreadsheet and say, well, if I put 25% down, I'll make this much better return over time. But you don't put in the spreadsheet, divorce. And what's that going to do to this loan? Death. Loss of job. I got cancer. That's the problem. Husband and wife I know here in town. She's a broker. He's a firefighter. Firefighters have what? A lot of time, because they're like at the station for 3 days straight and then 4 days off. So husband and wife started buying these deals. They had about 20 deals, free and clear. Went to the local bank here in town, credit union, and said, we just want to borrow, we're going to be conservative. We just want a line of credit for 35% of the value of our properties. Because then we can go from 20 to 45. Bank said, great, let's do it. They give them a line of credit, savings loan on the south side of Newton County. And husband was fighting a fire. Burning floor joist, falls on his back. He's lucky to be alive, but he's partially paralyzed. They have 3 little children. What do you think the first thing the wife stops doing very well is? Managing the properties. And when you start to not manage the properties very well, what happens to your cash flow? It drops. And so they found themselves losing all of the properties. So the savings loan calls me and they said, Aaron, we'll give you first dibs on these. You want to buy them? Yeah, sure. She came to the closing and I felt like I was buying one of her kids. It was horrible because she was just sobbing while she was signing paperwork. But they had agreed to not really hit their credit over it if they could, short sell them to me. And I just sat there like, I felt like an asshole. Because I was buying it, even though I was helping her save her credit, she's like, my husband and I poured our life into those properties. That was our retirement. And the stupidest thing we did was get a 35% mortgage on it, thinking that there's no way that could ever hurt us. Well, it did. And I'm just trying to keep my family alive, taking care of these kids and my husband. And so she's like, hey, I'll never get a loan again. And then I thought, ooh. Because when you're at the auction, you don't see what's behind the CLE. You just see a great deal that you're going to pick up. Right? But to confront that, I thought, how can I in good conscience ever advise one of my investors to get a recourse loan? Because every month I'm buying somebody else's CLE at the auction. Think about that. And if she would have had non-recourse, at least they could have just, walked away from the deals. But that's why, on my properties that I own, I would rather, they're free and clear. I would rather that you buy 3 properties free and clear and get no leverage than scale it up to 6. Now, do Robert Kiyosaki and I disagree on that? We sure do. He loves leverage. And so what you as an investor need to do is say, what resonates with me? Some of you may be sitting there going, nah, I disagree, Aaron. The upside to leverage, I'm okay with that, I'm comfortable with that, I want to take that on. And I respect that. All I ask is that you understand both sides of the coin. And understand why, personally for me, I'm more risk adverse. I'd rather have 1 free and clear property than 4 leveraged properties. Or 2 50% properties. Does that make sense? Now I understand non-recourse, I understand recourse, I understand buying free and clear. This is where my comfort level is. Because if you have IRA money and you're thinking about buying houses, you can use your IRA money to get a non-recourse loan. The federal government says you can get loans with your IRA money if they're non-recourse. That's why we do those. So if you have $25,000 in your IRA and you want to buy a $50,000 property from me, then your IRA gives me $25,000 and then I give you the loan for the other $25,000. It's non-recourse. You can do that. Okay? Now the other dynamic that really came in and screwed up loans, recourse loans, was May 1st, 2009. The Home Valuation Code of Conduct was passed by the government. How many of you have ever heard of this? 1, 2. HVCC completely devaluated appraisals. They made appraisals worthless. Because what had happened prior to 2009 in our country with loans? They used to have liar loans, right? Where they called them no-doc loans, where it was just your credit score and a tax return, and they gave you equity lines of credit. You could get 80-20 loans, 80% at first, 20% second, 100% buy. You could do cash-out refis. From basically 1998 until 2007 when the market collapsed, every loan, it was a free-for-all, right? So what did Congress do? They said, all right, well, we need to regulate appraisals better. We need to regulate lenders, and we need them to stop colluding. Was what they were trying to accomplish. So they said, okay, from here on out, a lender can never request an appraisal specifically from an appraiser. That has to end. In fact, what we'll do is we'll set up a company to go in between them called an appraisal management company. And the appraisal management company will have like 200 appraisers, and they just blind select one to do the appraisal. Now from we need to stop collusion, it was a good law. But one of the unforeseen effects is that there was a lot of honest lenders and honest appraisers who worked together for years and years that now couldn't work with each other. So think about our investors buying investment properties from us. We're going to see properties today that have had more construction work done on them than what we bought them for. So bought it for $25,000, did $35,000 in work on it. Now think about an appraiser who I have come in to do an appraisal on that property, who's not experienced with investment properties, who's not experienced with a complete gut rehab, who's been out in the suburbs doing vinyl village subdivision homes, where he pulls up comps, there's 3 identical houses that have sold in the last 6 months, and he delivers the value. Isn't that completely different appraising? Two different ways, two completely different workloads. We had an appraiser here in town who was an investor. He did commercial, he did residential. He knew the kind of properties that we did as investment properties. He was phenomenal at doing the valuations. And once HVCC passed in 2009, we couldn't work with him anymore. In fact, over by the Speedway, there was a neighborhood that prior to May 2009, homes were appraising for between $78,000 to $90,000. After HVCC passed, 3 months later, homes were appraising for 50s and 60s. Now, did anything fundamentally change about that neighborhood? Did the vacancy rate increase? Did the type of homes change? The only thing that changed was that legislation, because you had a bunch of appraisers coming in who didn't know the neighborhood, weren't familiar. And what if you're an appraiser, your number one thing you want to protect is what? Your job, your license. You don't want to get audited, you don't want to get reviewed. So are you incentivized to come in with a high value or the lowest possible value you think they'll accept?
Low risk.
Right? One of the things that's hilarious is investors that we have to get loans and they get appraisals for the loans. The weirdest thing happens. The appraisal seems to come in within $100 of the purchase price on the home. Mm-hmm. So weird. Why? Because if it comes into the purchase price, then the buyers and sellers aren't pissed, right? They already agreed on that price. What happens if they come in high? Well, if they come in high, they can maybe get reviewed for pumping values. What happens if they come in low? Everybody hates them. The buyers and sellers can't get the loan, they screwed it all up. So magically, appraisals always seem to come in right at the purchase price. Which is dumb because if I list a property at $80,000 and you come to me and you make an offer and we agree on terms and we settle at $68,500, I have a sneaky suspicion that if I would have sold it to you at $68,500, $72,300, $77,900, or $80,000, Mr. Appraiser would have brought it in at whatever that purchase price is. So is he really determining value? No. He's pushing paperwork and protecting his license and keeping his job. Because when they brought in the appraisal management companies, they said, yeah, appraisers, you don't get $400 on appraisal anymore. $200 goes to the appraisal management company and $200 goes to you. Guess what happened to all the best appraisers? They got out of the business because they could make more money bartending than they could as appraisers. And so HVCCs just has had a horrible effect on an appraisal as a determinant of value. On an investment property, what really drives the value? The return. What I can rebuild it for is meaningless, right? That's not the value, because I'm not looking to just rebuild this house. What really drives the value to me is the return. When you, in fact, when they do an appraisal on a big apartment complex, what's the number one way they appraise them? On the return. So why wouldn't you do single-family homes based on the return? What you really should be thinking is, can I confirm that if Aaron says that I can rent this for $700, I can get that? Can I confirm that if that what Aaron says about the taxes aren't going to change? What Aaron says about the insurance is what it should be. What Aaron says about the condition of the home. Because those are the things that are going to affect my return for better or for worse. Millionaire focus. Five-figure focus. See the difference? Okay? And so HVCC, do some reading on it. They've tried to boot it a few times. Because yeah, it did stop some of the collusion, but anytime you pass a law, it has huge implications and repercussions in other ways, and it's had some it's really destroyed the business of appraising as an industry. 2 cents on that, Dave?
I mean, you're just dead on. Bankers in general, right? The main thing a banker wants to do is manage downside risk, right? Same thing with an appraiser. Bankers and appraisers don't get fired if a loan doesn't get done. They get fired if a loan gets done that shouldn't have been done, right? So I always think about that when you're going to get traditional financing and you're going through HVCC and all those things. These people are just managing their downside risk, right? Most bankers don't make an incrementally more income if they approve a loan that is borderline, or if an appraiser doesn't make more money if he pushes a value. So I always try to think about that, because what's their economic incentive? They have none.
Yeah, I think, I usually tell investors, hey, if you do make the decision that you're comfortable with a recourse loan, then just know it's going to be a crapshoot. Because who knows what mood that appraiser is going to be in that day. Hopefully it'll praise. It may not. But that's why it's important you understand that. And it's important you understand that for projects that you're working on. So those of you who are doing flips at home, working with hard money lenders, that's one of the best things about hard money lenders is they actually look at the property as an investment, look at the numbers, and they don't just have an appraisal ordered because they know that it's worthless. Look at who really uses them. If you think about it, banks are really just using appraisals to pad their paperwork so that they can sell the loans to Fannie and Freddie. That's really all they're doing. It's not a valuation at all.
And how many of your 510 properties, how many of my R properties, I mean, how many appraisals has Rob asked you to do on the millions of dollars?
Yeah. And what about your fund?
0. They've never asked for an appraisal.
No, we don't do it. They don't want appraisals. I never get appraisals on the properties we buy. Do you?
No.
Appraisals are tools that banks use to prove that to cover people's jobs, and that 5-figure investors use to feel good about their investment. It's not a determination of value. Okay, so we've talked about passive income, we've talked about recourse, non-recourse, we've talked about systems. Last thing I want to talk about is compounding. Now, there's a couple of people you haven't met. Lincoln, why don't you come up real quick, because Lincoln is actually going to speak to you guys tomorrow. What we do on Sunday is we start at 9 o'clock. All day Sunday, you're going to meet my power team. Okay? You're going to meet for a few minutes our insurance guy, and he's going to talk about the insurance policies we have. You're going to meet our accountant. He's going to talk about how you should be working with an accountant. Tomorrow, you're going to meet the title company that we work with. You're going to meet, Lincoln's going to talk to you about working with contractors. We have one of our brokers coming in to talk to you. So tomorrow's Power Team Day. You'll hear from each of them. You'll have a chance to ask some questions. Really good content. This is kind of how we spend the whole day tomorrow. Today we'll be on the bus from about 1 until 5. We're going to see 8 properties today. Now, I used to make the mistake on the buses of, like our first bus tour, I thought, okay, I wanted to see as many properties as possible. So we saw 30 properties over 2 days. And I had this little granny who hated me by the second day. And she's like, Aaron, I really appreciate you taking us out to see every property that you have. But I kind of got it after the 3rd property in each neighborhood that you showed me. Why don't you just go, it seems like you have about 7 neighborhoods. Why don't you just take me to each one of those? And then I'll understand it. I'm like, yeah, sorry for the little 5-figure faux pas. So we're going to see some turnkey stuff that's all rehab and rented, so you can see what our turnkey is. We're going to see some pre-rehab properties. We have a couple that are available. We're just going to drive by, but we also want to show you that neighborhood. So Lincoln's going to be talking to you tomorrow, but Lincoln, why don't you talk a little bit about what you do?
So I'm the construction manager at Alpine. So what that means is that when a property is acquired, I go out to the house and write the original budgets, figure out how much it's going to be to renovate the house. I take that back, make sure the numbers make sense. I give the job to the contractors, supervise that work, making sure all deadlines are hit, answering any questions that they have, approving add-ons that may or may not come up through various projects. Once the contractor is done, I go back out to the house with my original budget and a highlighter and take pictures and make sure everything was done to the satisfactory level that we originally agreed upon.
Are you, so how long have you been a contractor?
I've never been a contractor.
Interesting. Yet, how many millions of dollars in construction projects are you managing right now?
Right now, we probably have, you mean?
Right, out right now, getting working on what, 60, 70 houses?
Yeah, it's probably
$4 million, $5 million?
I'd say it's pretty accurate.
So he's managing $5 million in construction. He's never been a contractor. What was I missing by hiring him? One of the things that Brant said was, you don't need a contractor doing your systems. You need an investor who's analytical to meticulously put together budgets based on an investor standpoint. And then you just need to hire an assistant manager. Guess who Lincoln's assistant manager is? Buster, the contractor, who's been a contractor his whole life. All he knows is pounding nails, but doesn't know anything about spreadsheets. So we brought Buster in to be the nuts and bolts consultant for Lincoln, but I wanted a finance guy. What was your degree in?
Finance, marketing, and management.
So Lincoln's a numbers guy, he's a spreadsheet guy, he's very analytical, he's incredibly bright, and he is more aligned with what my investors are. From the investor standpoint, this is what we want our homes. If the furnace is older than 7 years, we need to replace it. If the hot water heater is older than 3, we need to replace it. If the roof is older than 15 years, we need to replace it. Light fixtures, replace them all, because it looks like crap. Reglaze the tubs, but don't reglaze the toilets. You know? Yeah. So just all of the, we gave him like, you know, a guide for everything. So he goes through with an investor mentality, knowing what we brought the properties for, and creates a budget from an investor standpoint. Because you really don't need to be a contractor to make investor decisions, do you? You need to know what the big picture for the deal is, and it's a lot easier to teach a Lincoln that than it is to teach a contractor. And so we found that that's an incredibly powerful way to, we don't solicit bids from our guys. Lincoln creates a budget and we give it to them. And here's what we'll pay you. So he's going to talk about that tomorrow. And talk about those of you who are back at home working with contractors, how you can do that effectively. Because we have a school of thought on that. So the last thing, the last kind of main thing that I like to talk about that I didn't understand initially was, I had heard compounding. Like, who's heard that example if you put 1 drop of water in Yankee Stadium, and then it compounds to 2, and then 4, and then 8, and then 16, right? How long will it take to fill Yankee Stadium? It's like 5 minutes, you know, something done like that, right? Okay? Have you guys heard that example?
Same with the penny.
And then they always go, it's the power of compounding, you know, like a magic show. And I remember thinking, I don't really understand what that means. I mean, I follow the example, but it doesn't affect any of my investment decisions. It doesn't affect how I budget my money. Think about that. It's one thing to follow a lesson. It's another thing to have it be an internalized core belief. Like, think about me getting to the point where I said, I will never give recourse financing on deals. I like being unleveraged. I like a lumpy mattress. I took the idea of recourse, non-recourse, and unleveraged, and I've internalized it into how I decide to spend my money. Do you see the difference? So I found the same thing about compounding, that people get it, but they don't really understand it. Because if they did, everyone I know would be focused on the return. Like, who's ever heard of the rule of 72?
Oh, yeah.
Who has not heard of the rule of 72? Okay? Doug, explain the rule of 72. Thanks, Lee.
Rule of 72 is just basic in finance. It's a rule of thumb to tell you how quickly, if your return's compounding, it would double. So for instance, you take 72 and divide it by the interest you're getting. So 72 divided by 10, it would compound, it would double, so your investment would double in 7.2 years.
Okay, think about that. So some of you are probably making 1% on your IRA right now, right? So if you have $100,000 in that IRA at 1%, how long will it take to double? How many years?
72.
72 years. What if you get a 10% rental property with that IRA money? How long will it take to double? 7.2 years. Shouldn't that make a real easy decision? You know, maybe some of you are making 3 or 4%. Good for you. Not really. Because you're still talking about decades before that money doubles. That's why if I have a property that's doing 8% right now or 7% right now, I really don't care, because it's still way better than 1, 2, 3, or loss, which some of you have 401ks and IRAs that are lost. Yeah?
Is that money also tax deferred?
Yes. So think about that. That's where the compounding comes in. You buy a property with your retirement money. How much do you pay a year on taxes on the rental income? 0. And the rental income grows tax deferred. So think about it. As I learned about it, well, so Doug and I were messing around with this and we said, look, what if you bought 5 properties? Now, 5 is just an arbitrary number I chose. Could be you only have money for 1 to buy this weekend. That's great. Maybe you have money for 10. But what if you bought 5 and you put them in your self-directed IRA? Okay? And each property is like the 7 properties we're going to go see today, and like the properties that we sell. Our properties average somewhere in the 60,000 range. After expenses, they usually kick out about 500 bucks a month. Okay? So you buy 5 properties at 60K a piece. How much are you investing? 300,000. And each of those little houses, each of those little green houses is kicking out how much? 500. For a total? 2,500. You pay taxes on it?
No.
And you say, I'm just going to let it compound. I'm just going to let it compound. And when there's enough cash from those properties for those first 5 to buy themselves a friend, house number 6, then I will buy house number 6. How much money do I need for house number 6?
60.
Another 60,000. So I buy the first 5. Does it have to be 5? No. That was just our example. Because Doug said the math was easier. And the 2,500 starts coming in. After 10 months, how much do I have in that account? 25 grand. After 12 months, how much do I have in that account? $30,000. So after year 1, I got 30 of the 60 I need for house number 6. So how long will it take to get house number 6? 2 years. After 2 years, the first 5 will have kicked off enough cash flow to buy the 6th. But they bought them. I didn't buy them, right? Passive. But now that you have 6 houses in there, you have an extra what? 500 bucks a month in rent. So instead of 2,500 a month, you're up to 3,000. After 1 year, you have how much in there? 36,000. Where I only had 30 after year 1. At the end, sometime in year 4, but not a full 2 years, you'll have another 60,000. And house number 7. And with house number 7, how much money will come in? 3,500 now. And it starts to compound, and each house comes a little bit quicker. Is that sexy? It's dead sexy. Until, imagine if you pushed it out 15 years. Because it took you 3.5 to 4 years to get houses 6 and 7. It took a while, but it's getting quicker. Think right now, think of a number after 15 years, what's your gut that you're going to have? Raise your hand if you really have no clue. Well, Doug actually did the math. What about after 30 years? How many could you potentially have after 30 years? If you're young enough to wait 30 years and let that compound. Conservatively, after 15 years, you could have a couple $1 million in properties. That's nice. Kicking out more than $10,000 a month. That's sexy, right? You could have somewhere in the 20s. Isn't it funny how most of you guys had no clue? Well, I went through the house 6 and 7, but you still were like, right? After 30 years, you could have well over 100 houses. Now, there's a couple assumptions here. Like, I assume the house would always cost you 60 grand, and they would never go up. You could get them cheaper as you buy more, or maybe you pay more. But I also assume that your rent doesn't ever change. Okay, so we only put appreciation at 3%, which Indy right now is close to 7, and in the neighborhoods you're going to see today is double digit. Every house that you'll see today has been double digit appreciating the past 3 years. So Jessica is the last teammate that I want to introduce you to before we get on the bus. Jess, tell everybody what you do.
I bet everybody wants to go to lunch.
No, they want to hear what you do. They want to meet you.
Well, I have been working with Alpine off and on for the last 2-3 years, and I'm back full time in the last couple months, and it's been really great so far. I'm in a different role this time. I was working with maintenance before, but I'm in a different role, working a little bit on the construction side, with helping Lincoln process those budgets that he talked about, the rehabs and the turns. And so occasionally, if you decide to invest with us, you might get some emails from me, some communication from me. And then I'm also on the sales the preparing marketing documents, and for like all those that you see back there, I help do those of the homes that some of them will see today, and then some of the closing documents, this and that. So I work with Jacob. I believe I just got here at 11. I'm sorry I went running this morning. But maybe if you met Jacob this morning, I work directly with him as well, helping him process some of the things that he does.
That's why we're selling out. We're not really selling properties, are we? We're selling system. We're selling a culture. We're selling a set of values and a belief that we have. And we find that it resonates incredibly strong with groups of you at these bus tours. That's why we do them. Because we feel like you can come here once, spend a couple days with us, and go knowing that putting that money with us to buy deals is going to be safe, and it's going to be a good decision, and we treat it very seriously. That's why we do it. So at the expense of I guess this morning, if we would have seen deals this morning, we could have seen 15 or 18 deals today, but you probably would have been pissed. But that's why we took the time this morning for you to meet our team and to really help you understand where we came from, why we're here, and what vision we have for this company. Because there is not another company in the country that does 1 foot in Wall Street, like we have with private equity, 1 foot with individual investors, like we have with you, and then 1 foot internationally. You know, we have this whole group of international clientele that we're selling to. And so it really is one of a kind. It really is unique. It's random how it was built, but it's something that I personally am very proud of, and something that I love what I do. You know, I have the balance in my life that my dad never did. The balance of family, the balance of work, the balance of 3-mile runs around the canal, and health, you know. And I think that as each of you achieves that kind of balance in your life, you'll find how incredibly happy you are and how incredibly happy I am and have been. And hopefully that resonates through to you as well. And hopefully it strikes a chord, because that's really what it's about at the end of the day.